Mr. Hartman on live.
Good morning. I'm Jim Hart. I'm the chair of the Toronto Police Services Board. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the board. Can I please ask everyone to have their phones on mute, please, if dialed in. I'll now read the Indigenous land acknowledgement. Although this meeting is taking place on the phone, we acknowledge the land we're on as we make this call. It's a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The board also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed by the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed by multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Are there any declarations of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, I'll move forward. And I'll turn this meeting over to the board's executive director, Mr. Ryan Teschner, who will go over this meeting's logistics. Mr. Teschner?
Thank you, Chair Hart, and thank you to everyone who has joined this virtual meeting. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on the Toronto Police Service YouTube account and will be available there at the conclusion of this meeting. On the line currently, we have Chair Jim Hart, Vice Chair Marie Molinar, Councillor Michael Ford, Member Ainsworth Morgan, Member Lisa Katsakis. Mayor Tory will be joining shortly. As well, we have members of our board office staff. On the line, we also have Chief Raymer, his command team, other members of the service, and of course, members of the public. We have individuals who have registered to make deputations on our agenda items. As per our regular meeting process, deputations will be heard prior to the item being discussed and voted on by board members. When it comes time to do a deputation, those who have registered will be brought into the call by our colleague, Duby Cannon-Gisser. As always, deputants will speak, followed by an opportunity for board members to ask them questions. Chair Hart, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Teschner. Before we begin today, I'd like to ask all of us to observe a moment of silence for Constable Mark Hoving, an officer with the Ontario Provincial Police Manitoulin Detachment, who was tragically killed in the line of duty on November the 19th, 2020, on Manitoulin Island. Constable Hoving, a beloved officer who is known to be gentle and extremely dedicated, is behind a wife and 4 children. We join the close-knit community of which Constable Hoving was a tremendously respected and loved member, mourning his loss. We also grieve alongside the entire police community that has lost one of its own. When we lose a member of the policing family, we all grieve as one, together. As we also acutely know, police officers take an oath to serve and protect the members of their community diligently and with dedication, despite the considerable risks inherent in a profession founded on ensuring the safety of the public. An officer who gives their life in the line of duty, protecting their community with incredible bravery and extraordinary commitment, as Constable Hoving has done, has undoubtedly made the ultimate sacrifice. Our thoughts are with the family of Constable Hoving, with the police officers across the country, as we mourn his passing and pay tribute to his remarkable contribution. I now will ask all of us to take a moment of silence to honor Constable Mark Hoving. Thank you. I will now proceed through the agenda. Item number 1 is the confirmation of the minutes from the virtual meeting held on October the 22nd, 2020. Can I have someone move approval of those minutes, please? Councillor Michael Ford, seconded by Vice Chair Molinar. All in favor? Any opposed? Item number 1 is carried. Item number 2 is the introduction of new inspectors by Chief Raymer and Senior Officer Uniform Promotions. That is held down for presentation. Item number 3 is service reform with respect to search of persons. That is held down for deputation and presentation. Item number 4 is proposed body-worn camera policy, held down for deputation and presentation. Item number 5 is police reform in Toronto, Toronto Police Service ongoing initiatives. That is held down for deputation and presentation. Item number 6 is the Auditor General's proposed risk-based audit plan of the Toronto Police Service. I will hold that one down. Item number 7, Chief of Police selection process contract award to BESC Toronto Incorporated, Boyden, to deliver executive search services. Can I have a motion to approve item number 7? Vice Chair Molinar, seconded by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Members, just so you know, on the screen I can see Vice Chair Molinar and I can see Councillor Ford. Others I cannot see, so you'll have to speak up if you're going to hold or if you're going to approve. Item number 8 is the board's independent review into missing persons investigation, request to extend timeline and increase budget. And I have a motion to approve. We also have a written submission from Nicole Corrado, so a motion to approve and receive the written submission. Can I have a motion, Vice Chair Molinar, a seconder?
I'll second, Lisa.
Ms. Kostakis, thank you very much. I can now see you. Terrific. All in favor? Any opposed? Item number 8 carries. Thank you very much. Item number 9 is request for special funds, community partnerships for alternative community safety response model consultations. Can I have a motion to approve and receive a written submission from Nicole Corrado? That's item number 9. Motion to approve. Councillor Ford, could I have a seconder? Ms. Kostakis, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, item number 9 carries. Item number 10, request for special funds, Center for Young Black Professionals Hardship Fund. Item number 10, I need a motion to approve, unless someone wishes to hold it. Councillor Ford, motion to approve, seconder. Ms. Kostakis, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Item number 11, renewal of licensing, maintenance, and support for Plainview Enterprise Electronic Project and Portfolio Management Solutions software. Can I have a motion to approve? Mr. Morgan, I can't see you, so if you're on there, you can do a motion, then maybe I'll be able to see you. Motion to approve. Vice Chair Molinar, seconder. Seconder, Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I can now see everyone. Thank you very much. Item number 12, contract extensions with Onyx Enterprise Solution Limited and IBM Canada Limited server and storage hardware and software acquisition and maintenance services. Can I have a motion to approve item number 12? Councillor Ford, a seconder. Ms. Kostakis, all in favor? Any opposed? Item number 12 carries. Item number 13 is a contract award for SoftChoice Canada as a Microsoft licensing solutions provider for Microsoft Enterprise Agreements. Could I have a motion to approve item number 13? Ms. Kostakis, could I have a seconder? Mr. Morgan, all in favor? Any opposed? Item number 13 carries. Item number 14, Collision Reporting Center contract extension. Can I have a motion to approve item number 14? Councillor Ford, could I have a seconder? Vice Chair Mulliner, all in favor? Any opposed? Item 14 carries. Item number 15, City of Toronto Traffic Agent Special Constable appointments for November 2020. Can I have a motion to approve those appointments? Vice Chair Mulliner, could I have a seconder? Ms. Kostakis, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Item number 16, Special Constable Appointment and Reappointment November 2020. Can I have a motion to approve? Mr. Morgan, I can't see you any longer, just so you know. Motion to approve, Vice Chair Mulliner. Seconder? Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Item number 17 is a semi-annual report, publication of expenses January to June 2020. Can I have a motion to receive item number 17? Vice Chair Mulliner, could I have a seconder? Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any opposed? Item 17 carries. Item number 18 is the 2020 operating budget variance for the Toronto Police Service for the period ending September the 30th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve item number 18? Ms. Kostakis, could I have a seconder? Mr. Morgan, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Item number 19 is the operating budget variance for the Toronto Police Service Parking Enforcement Unit for the period ending September the 30th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve item number 19? Councillor Ford, could I have a seconder? Vice Chair Mulliner, all in favor? Any opposed? Item number 19 carries. Item number 20, Capital Budget Variance Report for the Toronto Police Service period ending September the 30th, 2020. A motion to approve the capital budget variance, item number 20. Ms. Kostakis, seconded by Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any opposed? Item 20 carries. Item 21, Independent Civilian Review into Missing Persons Investigation, Account for Professional Services. Could I have a motion to receive the account? Ms. Kostakis, seconder. Vice Chair Mulliner, all in favor. Item 21 carries. Item number 22, we have a deputation. So item number 22 is the public minutes of meeting 71 held on August the 24th, 2020 of the Central Joint Health and Safety Committee, and that's being held for a deputation. Item number 23, Chief Administrative Investigation into vehicle injuries to complainants 2018-76 and 2018-76A. Can I have a motion to receive item number 23? Councillor Ford, can I have a seconder? Vice Chair Mulliner, all in favor? Any opposed? Item 23 carries. Item 24, Chief Administrative Investigation into the vehicle injury to complainant 2018-37. Can I have a motion to receive item number 24? Vice Chair Mulliner, a seconder. Mr. Morgan, all in favor? That carries. Item number 25, Chief Administrative Investigation into the alleged sexual assault of sexual assault complainant 2019-03. Can I have a motion to receive item number 25? Vice Chair Mulliner, a seconder. Ms. Kostakis, all in favor? Any opposed? Item number 25 carries. Item number 26, Chief Administrative Investigation into the vehicle death of complainant 2019-19, vehicle injury of complainant 2019-19A. Item number 26. Can I have a motion, please? Vice Chair Mulliner, can I have a seconder? Ms. Kostakis, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Mr. Teschner, are there any, that's the last item on my list. Are there any further items after 26?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there's, it goes up to item 29.
Okay.
So item 27.
That's not on my screen. Can you call those out for me, please, Mr. Teschner?
Sure, I will. Item 27 is Chief's Administrative Investigation into the Firearm Injury to Complainant 2018.65.
Okay. Could I have a motion to receive that, please? Vice Chair Mulliner, seconded by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. The next item, Mr. Teschner.
Item 28 is Chief's Administrative Investigation into the Vehicle Injuries to Complainant 2019.34.
Could I have a motion to receive? Vice Chair Mulliner, seconder, Councillor Ford. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And the last item, Mr. Teschner.
Last item is 29, Chief's Administrative Investigation into the Custody Injury to 2018.50.
Could I have a motion to receive? Vice Chair Mulliner, a seconder. Councillor Ford, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Teschner, for helping out. I will now run through the items that have been held. So item number 2 is being held. Item number 3 is held. Item number 4 is held. Item 5 is held. Item 6 is held. And I believe that is it. Sorry, no, we have item number 22 is held for deputation. Is that correct, Mr. Teschner?
That's right, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair gives thumbs up, so it must be right. Okay. Okay, I'll now go back to the beginning of the agenda, which is item number 2. And I would just like to say a couple of things before I turn it over to the Chief. As we're about to consider a report recommending the promotion of 20 individuals to the rank of inspector and the addition of 2 individuals to the eligibility list, I want to make a few comments. Due to the current pandemic, unfortunately, we're not able to celebrate this special event as we ordinarily would. An in-person congratulatory handshake and a warm round of applause. But that shouldn't take away in any respect the tremendous importance with which these promotions should be viewed. This is a momentous time for the service as we're in the midst of a comprehensive work plan for reform, modernization, and transforming our culture and our practices to ensure we're meaningfully listening to all of the voices in our communities and truly meeting the expectations of our residents. It's so wonderful to see such an impressive and diverse group of members being promoted today. In this significant period, leadership has never been more important, and it's critical that our organization be led by senior members who are dedicated, hardworking, progressive, bright, insightful, and collaborative. On behalf of the board, I want to say to our new inspectors, we're so proud of the work that you've done to bring you to this position. We have the greatest confidence in you as you assume your new roles as leaders in the Toronto Police Service, moving us forward as an organization of excellence. Chief Raymer, I now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Hart. For purposes of the introduction today, we've prepared a short video, and I'll just allow, if we could just have that begin, please.
Just 1 second.
My comments are in there. I don't need any. Reaching the senior officer ranks takes experience, professionalism, and a dedication to the core values of the police service, as well as a commitment to community safety. Inspectors are in the first position of senior leadership within the organization, and through their day-to-day activities are responsible for motivating our members and driving forward corporate initiatives. The latest group of inspectors represent a wide array of policing and community experiences, education, and skills that make them ideal candidates for the next step in their careers. Each new inspector brings a unique vision of leadership and community policing to the role.
My role as an inspector in terms of leadership within the Toronto Police Service is investing within our people. I have to ensure that our people, when it comes into our personal and professional growth plans, that we're mentoring them, We're guiding them to ensure that they reach their fullest potential.
My favorite part about leadership is seeing the successes of my colleagues, whether that's our brand new recruits taking their place on the front line or being in class with a bunch of new inspectors. I've had great mentors in my career, and at the rank of inspector, I look forward to being that for the next generation of police officers.
As an inspector, what leadership means to me is using the 20+ years of experience I have and helping our members navigate the daily challenges they face. Allowing them to grow and grow in their own experience so that they can share that with others.
Leadership means leading from a place of service and not ego. It means putting our members and our communities first.
Leadership means harnessing the energies of every person that I work with. And I use the term work with because we do not work for each other, we work with each other. And we have some great, amazing people working for the Toronto Police Service. What we need to do is harness their energy and point them in the right direction. That's leadership.
Leadership in policing for me means taking care of my people. It means ensuring that I treat them with fairness and respect so that they can go out into the community every single day and give the same back to their community.
Being a leader to me is using the 20 years of experience that I have gained and mentoring the younger officers to make them better at what they're doing.
Leadership for me is about having the opportunity to develop and coach others for success in their current role and for future roles. It's also about sharing my passion for policing in recognizing and sharing the good work of the officers and the members of our service to the communities that we serve.
I think the role of leadership is about doing the right thing. It's about making sure the right thing gets done. It's about leading from the front and setting a good example.
It's a choice in holding myself accountable to make sure the members I work with are able to bring their true self to work, but also giving them guidance and support to provide them the organizational's common goals, values, and beliefs so that they can also achieve their true potential, which in turn is very important in achieving and striving for excellence in how we serve our communities.
To me, leadership means being authentic and mentoring others and having other people learn from my experiences.
When it comes to leadership, I'm going to borrow a quote. Great leaders don't set out to be a leader, they set out to make a difference. And these are words I live by. I've always set out to make a difference in every unit I've been in. I get to know my people, I listen to my people, I listen to my community, and I understand what they need. And I make sure that those things happen for them. And that's the type of leader that I'll be and continue to be for the rest of my career.
As a new inspector, leadership to me means inspiring those around me, supporting them, and doing everything I can to ensure they have the resources and knowledge available to succeed and excel in their positions. It's about recognizing that I don't know everything, I don't have all the answers, and listening to the people around me so they have a voice in the decisions I'm making.
As a leader, I believe it's about supporting all members so they reach their maximum potential, and we can in turn serve the community and respond in partnership and trust.
Leadership is about people. It's about knowing your people and promoting their welfare. It's also about doing the right thing, not just when it's easy or safe, but also when it might be unpopular and inconvenient.
Being a leader to me means being able to mentor other members. That way they can learn from my experiences and become the future leaders that we need.
Being a leader means being open, honest, authentic, and setting the example. It's about inspiring our people to do the right thing always, even when no one's looking. It's about promoting a culture that is transparent and is focused on servicing the community by developing the people I lead and encouraging innovation.
I'm very fortunate. I've served under a number of leaders both in the military and in the Toronto Police Service. And the one thing that really stands out to me is that leadership isn't a rank, it isn't a position. It's about having a vision, about inspiring others to join you for the journey through that vision and achieving goals as a team.
So leadership means connecting with the community, our members, showing a dedication to community safety and a dedication to what I committed to 24 years ago when I joined this organization to keep the streets of Toronto safe.
Police-community relationships are imperative. We live and work in a world where we can't do things on our own. The police cannot do things by themselves. Public safety and quality of life improvement in our city is a co-production, and we need the community's assistance to do that.
Police-community relations is all about collective impact. We all have a responsibility to work in conjunction with each other to improve our surroundings and also improve our quality of life. And once all this happens, this is where community resiliency is able to thrive within our community and within each other.
Working in partnership with our many diverse communities is important because as a large city that faces many complex problems, we realize as a police service that we cannot do this alone. We need the support of our communities in achieving our ultimate goal of public safety, which is what we're here for.
A strong partnership with our communities is essential to effective policing and maintaining public safety. We need the community's participation for them to identify crimes in their neighborhoods so that we can work together to develop solutions for crime and disorder.
I've lived in Toronto since I was 3 years old, so it was important for me to join the service to give back. As part of this community, my role as a police officer has always been to work with the community. As an inspector, I want to work with that community and continue that work. Building those partnerships will help us move forward together as a community and make Toronto the best and safest place to be.
Police-community relations is a cornerstone of policing. We require the cooperation and assistance of the community to keep Toronto the best and safest place to be. We can't solve it all, and this is where we need the community's help to help us.
The importance of community and policing relations is collaborating, partnerships, and truly understanding each other's lived experiences so that we better understand the community's needs.
I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of communities in developing training for the Toronto Police College. The insight and lived experience and knowledge is invaluable. We can't solve every problem, but involving our communities in the problem-solving process is the key to progress.
Police and community relationships are important. They form the cornerstone of partnerships that are essential to solving problems in the community. We can't do it alone.
It's so important for the police and the community to work together so we can share each other's views for a safer Toronto to work collaboratively together.
Police-community partnerships are so important because it is the community members who truly know their needs and perspectives. By working together, we can build stronger community partnerships.
Police and community partnerships are important because we need the community to partner with us to keep Toronto the best and safest place to be.
As police officers, it's not only important that we're attending radio calls for service and enforcing laws, but it's also important that we're engaging with members of the public in non-enforcement activities on a regular basis to strengthen, build, and maintain the relationships we have with community members.
We need police and community partnerships because we can't do anything in our job without their support. We need the community's input and we need their backing.
I believe working together with our communities, keeping them informed and listening to them to help bridge gaps between us and to build and maintain the community's confidence in us.
It's been said that a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Leadership to me means being present and accessible and inspiring a group to work towards a common goal. It is about enabling them and encouraging them to do their best work. It's about knowing my strengths and weaknesses as well as those of the team and learning from it, and then leveraging our strengths to overcome any challenges. People who work together do their best work. This includes our communities. Policing is ineffective without their engagement, their input, or their trust.
I've been very fortunate in some of the roles and positions I've had in the service, and I've gotten the chance to meet with a number of communities across this city. The one lesson I've learned is that policing can't be done to a community, it has to be done with the community. That's what inspires trust in our public, and that's what helps us to achieve our goals as a community.
As a leader within the Toronto Police Service, I believe in supporting all members so that they can achieve their maximum potential, so that we can in turn serve our communities and build relationships grounded in partnership and trust.
The relationship between the community and police is pivotal in determining how successful we are in doing the job that we do every day. But I take it one step further. Police and community are part of the same fabric, but building those relationships are important, one engagement at a time. So as a leader, I believe our members, when they communicate and connect with the community and collaborate with them, Not only does it provide the community satisfaction, but it also provides our members satisfaction in knowing that they're making meaningful connections. And those meaningful connections will result in not only more transparency, but also more trust in what we do in our daily interactions.
I believe the key to building positive community relationships is to understand one another and to appreciate each other's lived differences. As a leader, I will encourage my people to connect with their communities outside the normal scope of policing. This will break down biases, increase public trust, and enhance community safety.
Thank you, Chief. That was a terrific video. Before I turn this over to board members, did you have any comments you wanted to add, Chief?
No, thank you, Chair. It's I'll just add that, well, actually, I will say that it's an excellent group of candidates we have, as you can see, and they're really excited. I've talked to them all about working. Some of them have already started working night shift the last few nights, and proud to wear the uniform. So, I congratulate them again.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks for that video. Board members, any questions on 2A, the presentation, or 2B, the senior officer uniform promotions? Any questions, board members? Anyone wish to speak up? Vice Chair Mulliner, a question? I think you may be on mute, Vice Chair. Still can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'll keep this very short. Congratulations, Chief. I know that the effort to get to today has been significant behind the scenes, and I think this is a novel way of introducing a backbone group of staff, these inspectors. So job well done to everybody. And perhaps it would be helpful for all of us to know the full complement of inspectors you have to understand how this new cohort will be a part of the larger cohort of inspectors. Thank you.
Chief, did you hear the question?
Yeah, it's in terms of our total complement. We've made a couple of additions here with this group to and actually topped up to where we should be in terms of our number of inspectors. And I'm just not quite sure what that full complement is now. I think it's in the neighborhood of approximately 40 in total. So what we've had some vacancies for quite some time and people in acting positions. So it was good that we were able to now complete the full complement and get it in. So, but I believe the total is around 40. I got a couple of people checking here, but Rob Johnson's not quite fast enough. So I can't delay any longer. I'm going to stick to about 40.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions? Anyone wish to speak to this item?
Hi, Chair Hart. Just thank you very much for your presentation, Chief. I just is maybe just a breakdown in terms of the sort of diversity of the senior team. Is that something that's available?
Actually, Deputy McLean, would you be able to provide those stats?
Good morning, Chair and board members. Absolutely. I will make sure that the board is provided with that information.
Thank you.
Any further questions or speakers? Seeing none, before I ask board members to receive A and approve B, if we were all together, I'm sure at this point in time we would have a round of applause. So even though this is virtual, let's do that anyway. Congratulations, everyone. Board members, 2A, motion to receive the presentation from the Chief. Vice Chair Mulliner, second by Mayor Tory, all in favor. Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, 2A is received. 2B, a motion to approve the senior officer uniform promotions. Motion to approve. Vice Chair Molinar, second by Ms. Kostakis. All in favor? Any opposed? 2B carries. Item 2 is carried. Item number 3 is services reform with respect to search of persons. We have deputations, but we also have a presentation. So we will start with the presentation. Following the presentation, we will go to deputations. Following that, we will take it into the board. So presentation first, when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. Deputy Yoon here. As a result of the November 2019 board meeting on the body scanner, the board has asked, and rightly so, a number of critical questions on the Toronto Police Service Level 3 strip search policy and how we do business. As a result of that, including myself and the working team, we work very hard and to look at the issues and some of the concerns raised by the O.I.P.R.D report and most importantly the community. So the review team has came back with very good recommendations and things that we'll do it moving forward with. So at this stage, at this time, I will ask Acting Superintendent Kim O'Toole to take us through a brief presentation, and we'll take any questions after. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I'm going to attempt to share my screen, so if you can bear with me for just a moment. And if you can let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, you're good, Kim.
Yep,
Thank you, sir. So as the deputy had said, in 2019, as a result of our full body scanner pilot project, the board had several questions that were being asked about our search of persons process and our strip search numbers. And the full body scanner team conducted a comprehensive review based on the questions and issues identified in the O.I.P.R.D report, Breaking the Golden Rule. So this is a very brief presentation today to speak to you about what we have done, what has changed, and more detailed explanations are included in the board report. So in terms of what has changed, we have a new booking and search template that's been created, and this will provide the service with the ability to capture and report on data more accurately and more comprehensively. We have a new staged approach to search, which has been adopted in terms of requiring persons to conduct a frisk search prior to conducting a strip search. And we've changed the names and type of search. Previously, we had level 1, level 2, and level 3 for the names and types of search, and we have moved to protective, frisk, and strip search. To go along with the change of names and types of search, we've also updated the definitions. And we have instituted the procedure to afford persons the right to speak to counsel prior to a strip search, which is referenced in recent case law of Regina versus McGuffey. And we have updated our service governance to reflect all of those changes. So, communicated on October 2nd of 2020, direction was given from the Office of the Chief to unit commanders to require them to review strip searches daily. So every strip search occurring in a division across the city is to be reviewed daily. It's been mandated to enter that information on the unit commander's morning report, and then staff superintendents are required to review all weekly strip searches for comprehensiveness in data, ensuring that the forms are completed properly, and ensuring that our members are articulating their reasonable grounds for those search to be conducted. To accompany our current state and our changes, the search review team developed an e-learning module, which was released on October 13th, 2020. And we provided a deadline for completion of that by December 31st. And that training is to be, all police officers, district special constables, and bookers are required to complete that training by that date. And then on October 20th, 2020, an updated direction was given to provide all members involved in the booking process to complete the training by November 20th. So that would include police officers who are officers in charge, who are booking prisoners, district special constables, and bookers. As of November 5th, 2020, there were 2,306 members of our uniformed complement that have completed that training. And I can tell you, as of November 23rd, there were 3,101 that have completed that training. Some important dates for this review: October 2nd, 2020, as I indicated, there was a compliance oversight direction from the Office of the Chief provided to unit commanders. On October 9th, 2020, we released the updated service governance to include the implementation of the new search template and the stepped approach. On October 13th, we released the e-learning module with the routine order directing members to complete that learning module. This is a graph that depicts our numbers in terms of weekly strip searches. Some numbers to highlight are those dates just referenced. October 2nd, you can see by the graph we have an average of 151 strip searches occurring per week across the city. October 9th, we have 50 occurring on average, and then October 13th, we have 47 occurring per week. We are now in week 48, and as of the end of last week, we had 15 strip searches conducted across the city. So as part of our comprehensive review, we engaged both the O.I.P.R.D. and the SIU in terms of review of our procedure or proposed procedure and our changes to our strip search governance, which we now call level 3 governance, which we now call strip search. And we are pleased to advise that the O.I.P.R.D. is supporting the action taken by the Toronto Police Service. They are pleased that we have adopted the changes that we have for much needed clarity in terms of the definitions pertaining to the searches and how to conduct a search. And they are looking to share the standard that the Toronto Police Service has created with other police services in Ontario to move towards consistency across the province in terms of strip searches and language surrounding that. And from our consultation with the SIU, they were pleased that they were able to offer feedback and review in our draft policy. And we're also pleased in terms of our step to capture all strip searches on audio and all protective and frisk searches on audio and video whenever practicable. We're very pleased with our ability to collaborate and work with our partners in terms of moving our procedure forward. And that gives you a brief overview of where we are now in terms of the changes that have been made to our strip search procedure. And I will stop sharing my screen, and I will turn it back over to Deputy Lewin.
Members of the board, I just want to add that it's our every intention to have all the members trained by the end of this year on the new strip search procedure. I want to reiterate the training is CPKN. It's 1 hour, and I certainly can share the training curriculum with members of the board upon your request. And our search template has been redefined and redesigned, and I certainly can share that with the members of the board as well upon your request. It's a stage, and it's very intuitive, and it binds our officer in charge to ask a number of questions before he or she will make that decision to ultimately conduct a strip search with a accused person. So these are things that I want to add, and I understand there's some deputations, and we can take questions shortly thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. It's Jim. Before we take questions from board members, we have a couple of deputants, so we'll hear from the deputants first, then we'll come back to the board for questions or speakers. We also received a written deputation from Monica Lemke, and that has been distributed to board members. So Doobie, I'll ask you to put on the first deputant now, who I believe is John Sewell. Doobie?
Yes. Mr. Sewell, you should receive a request now to unmute. Mr. Sewell, can you hear me? You should be receiving a request to unmute. Please approve it, and then you'll be able to speak.
Okay.
Yes, we
John
can hear you now.
here.
Go ahead
Can
when
you
you're
hear
ready.
me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the Toronto Police Accountability Coalition, and the best way for us to put this is better late than never. 19 years after the Supreme Court of Canada outlined what the Toronto Police Service Board should do, the service has finally done it. 19 years. 19 months after the O.I.P.R.D. said it was unconscionable that the Toronto Police Service strip search 40% of those arrested, while other police forces, large police forces in Ontario, strip searched only 1% of those arrested, the service decided to act in its report. That's 19 months. There have been 40 court cases since 2001 involving strip searches by Toronto police, and the courts showed that they had a continuing number of problems with the searches done by Toronto police. The Toronto Police Services Board refused to take those court service decisions as a sign that leadership was required. Toronto Police Accountability Coalition raised the issue in 2004, that's 15 years ago, pushing the board to release the number of strip searches, which Chief Bill Blair finally did in 2006. And that's when it showed that the police service was then strip searching a third of those arrested. We deputed to the board in 2006, asking the number be reduced so it would not happen, it would only happen rarely as required by the Supreme Court of Canada, and the board refused to act. We have raised this issue every single year since 2006 when the strip search statistics are presented to the board. We've always been asking that the police first do a level 2 search, a frisk, justifying what a strip search is necessary for as determined by the Supreme Court of Canada. And every year the board has refused to take action and show leadership. That's since 2006. Yes, the new policy should be adopted, and Chief Raymer and his staff should be congratulated for doing something which other chiefs and the board have refused to do for 19 years. We think that one other issue that should be addressed is the number of strip searches that take place in public. We understand from the Ontario Human Rights Commission that that still is occurring. And we think the annual report about searches should include data on this. The last point we want to make, we think the board should apologize for the many, many people who have been strip searched needlessly during the past 19 years when the board has refused to act. We're glad that, in fact, action is going to happen now, but we think an apology is in place for something that is really unconscionable that the board has refused to do in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. Board members, any questions of Mr. Sewell? I believe Mayor Tory has a question.
It is. Always agree on things, but he always comes forward and speaks about these things in a thoughtful way. And of course, with the experience of having sat in this office that I'm sitting in and having been involved in policing matters, and I can tell you, because it's just the truth, that when I expressed concern and moved a motion about this in 2019 to help to get a process going, I was deeply concerned about the relative numbers and the absolute numbers and the length of time this had been discussed, and it was in no small measure because of the comments of John Sewell. And I would just like to say to him as well, Mr. Chair, that I would like to take away, just so that we can do these things carefully and make sure you do it properly, the notion of apologizing to people. And you can't quantify exactly who they were because we don't have a record of every single one of these, but maybe making some sort of a general apology to those who may have been improperly strip searched in past years. But I just want to say thank you to John Sewell for staying at this. I mean, he's right, better late than never, but nonetheless, it's being done. And I commend the chief for that. But so it's more of a comment that I wanted to, just while Mr. Sewell was here, I wanted to thank him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board members, anyone else have any comments, or Vice Chair?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, yes, I absolutely agree with the Mayor's observation about the gratitude we owe Mr. Sewell for relentlessly pursuing this over the years. It's a very important change that has happened, and it's happened in an unprecedentedly rapid way. So my question is for the Chief. And first of all, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I absolutely agree with the Mayor's observation about the gratitude we owe Mr. Sewell for relentlessly pursuing this over the years. It's a very important change that has happened, and it happened in an unprecedentedly rapid way. So my question is for the Chief. And first of all, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
He made a
Thank you.
Tori made a big speech, and thanks for Sue, you know. So.
The Mayor's observation about the gratitude we owe Mr. Sewell for relentlessly pursuing this over the years. A very important change that has happened.
I don't know what's happening, Vice Chair. Unless you're a ventriloquist, I don't know what's happening.
Vice Chair, one thing you may want to do, if you have YouTube running in the background, you may want to shut that off. No? Okay. Okay.
Maybe you can, Vice Chair, maybe you can send your question to Ryan, and we can figure out how to ask it as we go through this item. I think that's the best way to handle it this point. Thank you. And any board members, any other questions, comments for Mr. Sewell? I just want to echo the Mayor's comments, Mr. Sewell. You know, I've met with you one-on-one individually in my office, and you have a number of items that you have certainly raised with me and with the board over the years. And I take what you say very seriously. And I agree with you. I'm glad that the chief has landed this policy and these changes and has made great strides. And I'm glad that we've ticked off one box on a list of things that you've brought before this board, and I want to thank you for that, Mr. Sewell. Sylvie, can you put on the next document, please?
Yes, the next deputation is from Mr. Derek Moran. Derek should be receiving a request to unmute. Derek, if you can hear me, please accept the request.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead when you're ready.
I just want to say, by me speaking at this meeting, this shall not be deemed to be in any way my consent expressed or implied. In doing so as fraud. God bless Her Majesty the Queen, and long live Her Majesty the Queen. Let the record show as person is defined as a corporation in the Legislation Act of Ontario. If I have ever led the Toronto Police Services and or this board to believe in any way that I am the person, then that would be a mistake, and that I ask all of you to please forgive me. So in terms of strip searches, take notice what the Supreme Court of Canada had to say in regards to, on pain of sanction, in R versus Big M Drug Mart Limited 1985. Freedom can primarily be characterized by the absence of coercion or constraint. If a person is compelled by the state or the will of another to a course of action or inaction which he would not otherwise have chosen, he is not acting of his own volition, and he cannot be said to be truly free. Coercion includes not only such blatant forms of compulsion as direct commands to act or refrain from acting on pain of sanction, think of us getting a strip search. Coercion includes indirect forms of control which determine or limit alternative courses of conduct available to others. This item is titled Services Reform with Respect to Search of Persons. This has to do with unlawful or illegal searches in the past. Take notice what the Supreme Court of Canada had to say in regards to the description of what is unlawful or illegal. This is from the PN Hydroelectric Commission versus Ontario Hydro 1982. There appear to be three categories of actions or events which are contrary to the law and which sometimes fall into the descriptions unlawful or illegal. A, offenses against statutes prohibiting defined conduct. B, actions which are without legal consequence in the sense of creating enforceable rights, such as gaming contracts. C, actions taken by statutory bodies outside the limits of authority granted or established in the statute. Take notice what the Ontario Court of Appeal had to say in a case that resulting from an unlawful illegal search. This is Figueres versus the Toronto Police Services Board, 2015. The impugned government action has either the purpose or the effect of restricting freedom of expression. Indeed, this court has held that the right to protest government action lies at the very core of the guarantee of freedom of expression. And speaking of protests, again, I want to commend Chief Raymer and his officers for making sure our common law right to liberty and or freedom of expression was upheld on Halloween at the Young Dundas Square March put on by The Line and Chris Sky, who speak out about how this fake pandemic is being used to trample our rights and freedoms over a virus that long-term care minister Marilee Fullerton referred to as being basically comparable to a bad flu year. And I just want to point out that I did not witness any searches going on during that event. I'm curious, though, as to how one even searches a person to begin with, as take notice what the Ontario Court of Appeal had to say in regards to what the only legal person known to our law is. This is from Ree Cummings and Ontario Minor Hockey Association, 1979. The only legal person known to our law is the corporation. So I'm not quite sure how you search a corporation other than going to the building and search their offices. Take notice what the definition for person is in the Ontario Legislation Act. Person includes a corporation. Take notice what the definition for person is in the Federal Interpretation Act. Person or any word or expression descriptive of a person includes a corporation. Take notice what the definition for person is in the Criminal Code. Everyone, person, and owner, and similar expressions include Her Majesty and an organization. So, Chair Hart, I actually had a question for Chief Raymer at the end of this. Out of those three definitions for person that I just gave, from the Ontario Legislation Act, the Federal Interpretation Act, and the Criminal Code, which is the definition for person that the Toronto Police Services rely upon, use, when it comes to search of persons? And I just want to point out that in Endine versus British Columbia, the Supreme Court of Canada talked about the public's right to know the law and to understand its application. And as in this example, people should know what definition for person the police are using when it comes to the search of persons. And that's it.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions of Derek? Seeing none. Chief, did you want to comment on Derek's question?
Yes, with respect to the search of persons, actually, I'll turn that over to Deputy Ewan and his team.
The definition we use is according to the Criminal Code of Canada and in search of when we conduct searches of individuals.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you, Derek. Now we'll take this into the board. Before I ask for questions, I will, yes?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I have the question from Vice Chair Molinar.
Oh, okay, great. Go, can you ask it, Ryan, please?
I will, yes. And Vice Chair, after I read the question, if you can maybe just indicate with a thumbs up that we have it right. This is a question from Vice Chair Molinar to the Chief. Chief, you were able to change the way strip searches are conducted, and you were able to make it happen very quickly. This tells me that significant change, especially in significant areas, can happen when leadership and clear instructions are provided. What have you learned from this about how you can make important changes happen? And can you tell us where you are focusing next?
Actually, that's a bit of a, well, I wouldn't say it's a difficult question, but what I'd say is when you have a good team of people together and we're all focused on the same goal, recognizing what that goal needs to be, I think that's when you can have this type of outcome. So this was not me doing this alone. This was a team that did it. It also involved some people doing an outstanding review that, quite frankly, once that view was produced or that review was completed, the answer was clear. And I think the entire command team was on the same page, and we all moved collaboratively together to move forward. And I think as we look at the 81 recommendations and police reform, we feel and we are excited about this opportunity and feel the same way about it. So we will continue to collaborate as a command team and as an organization, and we'll continue to move forward. And I can tell you as well that with respect to the strip search issue specifically, this benefits every member of the organization. And I think as we go further with this, we're finding more and more of our members that are frankly excited about the change and moving in this direction. And so we're going to continue to listen to the community, collaborate with the community, and then continue as an organization to move forward.
Thanks for that, Chief. Before I bring this item to the board for questions or speakers, I just have a few comments on strip searches that I would like to read now. The Supreme Court of Canada has said that a strip search inevitably results in serious infringement of privacy and personal dignity. The board agrees. Whenever someone is strip searched, they will experience a very personal intrusion on their privacy and on their dignity. There's no doubt that it can be a difficult experience. The board acknowledges that these impacts are real. We hope that continued monitoring, coupled with the necessary reform, will help alleviate the personal impacts of strip searches and restore the trust the service and board must continually earn from the public that we serve. Over the years, the Toronto Police Service has improved its strip search practices based on developments in the law, in the courts, and by making bodies, policy-making bodies. Over the years, the Toronto Police Service has improved its practices. Last year, when the Office of the Independent Review Director released its report on systemic province-wide review of strip searches, the board acted. The board exercises governance and oversight function by passing a multi-pronged motion directing the chief to examine various aspects of the approach the service takes to strip searches and to report back on how that approach could be improved. Striking a balance that serves public safety while minimizing the negative experiences with public and their interactions with police is an ongoing effort. That balance continually changes over time as social, legal, and technological realities change. We continue to learn and benefit from new information, as we did from the O.I.P.R.D's report. And we strive to enact sustainable change for the better. It's clear today that this area has seen considerable positive change, and that the most recent set of changes put in place by Chief Raymer and reported to the board today have had significant and measurable impact. We're grateful to the SIU and the O.I.P.R.D for their feedback on these changes. The support they've expressed of these reforms is further proof of the progress the service has made. Continued measurable improvement in this area is something that the board will pursue and promote. The board will also continue to monitor the service's approach to strip searches with a view to ensuring that the service remains a leader in this approach. And I think we've seen from today's actions that we will be a leader in this approach. I now turn it over to board members for questions on the entire item. Board members? Questions on the item? Ms. Kostaka, go right ahead when you're ready.
Good morning. Just in the recommendation, which was number 45 of the O.I.P.R.Ds, that was not implemented, can we get a little bit more rationale on that when it speaks to not having other people around, especially let's just say for a young person who's there who would want a parent during a strip search, or even someone with mental health issues. Can you just give a little bit more of rationale why that was not implemented as part of that recommendation?
Councillor, I can tell you that we have looked at that, but I'll turn it over to Peter for some specifics.
We are going to look at it again because with the development of the new procedure, that was not, Lisa, it was not in our old procedure of strip search, and so now we're looking at it again, and I think it will be better because we are right now mandating every. You saw the SIU comment that every one of our booking halls, and some of them needs to be retrofitted to have audio monitoring. So that will enhance that process. But the reason that I can go back because I was not involved in the original discussion on why it was not the recommendation did not move ahead was the privacy issue of the young person and the trauma that another person. And we also looked at not every young person has an extra kid or someone that he or she will feel comfortable having it. But this, I can assure the board we are looking at this and making some tweaks in our procedures. And like I said earlier, the audio monitoring of all strip searches will enhance this process.
Okay, and it just also, can you speak the mental health piece as well? Because a lot of people don't understand, and depending on what that issue is as well, someone may react differently, which will make it look like resisting arrest or resisting any form. So I just think it's important to really dig into that as well. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? I have one question, Chief. On 3C, page 30, we talk about the Q4 update on full body scanners. Given that your numbers have gone from a high on strip searches of, I think, 251 in a given week to the most recent week being 15, is it fair to say that the full body scanner technology, which is quite expensive, is now on hold? Can you comment?
Yes, actually, we don't have any of the scanners. We did do the pilot. You know, quite frankly, the scanner is a de facto strip search. And so the reality is, in terms of our new procedures and where we're going with the numbers, as Kim had indicated, our most recent numbers were 15. I certainly at this point in time have no intention of reintroducing the scanner technology at this point.
Thank you, Chief. Board members, anyone wish to speak to this item? Mayor Tory. Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. And Mr. Chair, thank you. I think you could probably tell from my comments, which were very sincerely meant to Mayor Sewell, in thanking him for the role he's played. I guess maybe speaking of an apology, we should have apologized to him for the fact he had to keep coming back for 19 years, but he did, and that's the way he is. And I think but beyond him, I want to say thank you to Chief Saunders because, you know, the original motion that I moved in November of 2019, and Mayor Sewell may say that was late in coming because I'd been on the board for 4 years by then, but then this report kept coming back, and you can never be sure of the circumstances in which our police officers were conducting these level 3 searches. But what you could be sure of when you saw this report every year, and this is where I fault myself for not speaking up sooner, is that the relative numbers compared to any other, because we were given relative numbers compared to other police searches as to the percentage of instances in which these were conducted, were way higher than elsewhere. And so you know that there isn't necessarily going to be, maybe in a big city like this, you're going to have a slightly elevated number. I'm not even sure that's justifiable based on the size of the city. But you just knew these numbers were so far out of whack that it just didn't make sense, and that there was obviously some problem which had been identified by some of these reports with respect to how this was used and the policies that underlay it. And so the motion was moved at the time, and I remember in particular there was a paragraph in it that talked about the relative numbers and asking for an explanation as to why you'd have so many more of these searches taking place in the city of Toronto pursuant to the activities of the Toronto Police Service. And Chief Saunders began the work that the board directed him to undertake to come back with a report that we've now seen. Chief Raymer finished the job, and I think that he in particular deserves credit for finishing the job and actually implementing the policy that has been implemented. I think if any of us thought about this, there are many things that go on that we have to sort of make sure we keep an eye on. That's our job, is to oversee, and some of them, one might argue, are more important, in quotes, than a strip search. But if you think about the humiliation involved, the loss of dignity, the lack of respect that would be carried with a strip search that shouldn't be conducted, it's a pretty searing event for anybody who experiences one. And I think if we all put ourselves in that position and said, well, there are more serious things that have to do with breaches of the law and lack of respect for charter rights and so on, this one, I think, would rank up there in the minds of a lot of people with respect to something that just shows, a very high level of disrespect if it's done improperly. So now let's look at the good news. Two bits of good news for me. One, we have a new policy. Two, it seems to be working. And I guess the third thing that's almost most important, it is proven that we can bring about a reform. We can do it without taking years to do it once the resolve was there, because it did take 19 years. But once the resolve was there, starting in 2019, it happened relatively quickly, because it takes time to develop a new policy and actually implement it and do the training that has been referenced. And I think it proves something else that's important, which is that I believe in the end it will be shown that this reform brought about in relatively short order once the decision was made did not impair and will not impair the effectiveness of policing. And I think that is something that's going to be very important for us to keep in our minds and keep focused on as we go forward with other reforms that I think have a lot to do with respect, mutual respect by the citizens for the police and the function that they have to serve in a lawful democratic society, but also respect by the police for the people that they serve. And I know that the vast majority of police officers do respect the people that they serve, but I think these are the kinds of things sometimes where it would have been easy to conclude that there were too many police officers who, just by carrying out perhaps what they even thought was an acceptable practice in these strip searches, showed disrespect to the citizens. For myself, I would like to take under advisement, just so that we can consider it carefully, the notion of apologizing to people that you don't know exactly who they were, because you don't know going back which searches were, would have been done pursuant to today's policy and which would not have been done. But I think the notion of that sort of an apology is something worthy of consideration. But most of all, I just want to thank Chief Raymer and his team for moving this forward and actually implementing it, having good training, having good accountability mechanisms going forward. I think the most important part of this is not just the respect it will show for people, the increased respect, but it'll show that we can bring about change in policing in a way that doesn't impair the effectiveness or the respect shown to the police, but does dramatically increase the respect shown to citizens and tries to make sure that we perform our role, which is as an oversight body. So thank you again, Chief, and thank you to your team for doing such a good job on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board members, any other speakers? Being none. Chief Raymer, did you have a final comment you want to add?
Yes, Chair. I'll just say that we're excited to move in the right direction now when it comes to the searching of persons. And getting to this point, there's been considerable amount of time looking at our procedures, data, as well as case law. We've also listened to the many people who have rightfully come forward and made their voice clear that change was needed. And although change takes time, I'm confident that this new approach not only represents the right thing to do, but it should send a clear message to everyone that Toronto Police Service is listening. And if I may make one final comment, Chair, just with respect to the Vice Chair's comment on the last on point number 2 in terms of the promotions. I can advise Chair Mulliner that, Co-Chair Mulliner, that we have 45 senior officer positions. 11 of them are currently female, and 8 of this last inspector's process were female members as well. So it's a great advancement and very well deserved. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Chief. I'll now take this into the board. Can I have a motion to receive the entire item, A, B, C, and D? Motion to receive. Ms. Kostakis, can I have a seconder? Vice Chair Mulliner, all in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. We'll now move forward to item number 4, which is the proposed body-worn camera policy. We have a presentation. I just have a couple of comments before we get to the presentation. We're about to consider a report on the proposed body-worn camera policy. I think it's important to reference that this is the first time we're aware of in Canada where not only the draft board policy, but also the police services procedure have been distributed to the public for review and comment. The first time ever. This valuable input by members of the public assists us in ensuring maximum transparency and public understanding of how this new technology will be deployed. So I congratulate everyone involved in this for their openness and transparency and public engagement. And as I said a moment ago, this is the first time ever, as far as we know, in our country that this has happened, both the policy and the procedure. So congratulations, everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Teschman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, members of the service, members of the public. I'm going to give a brief presentation to outline some of the highlights of the proposed body-worn camera policy that is before the board for approval today. And I'll just note that the Information and Privacy Commissioner is queued up on the line to make a deputation. In 2015, the board approved a 1-year pilot of body-worn cameras by the service. And at the pilot's conclusion, it was determined that the technology available at the time was both insufficient and unsustainably expensive. But by 2019, we realized that those concerns had in large part been addressed. New body-worn cameras offered longer battery life, secure and efficient storage and access, and significantly lower costs both for the technology itself as well as for the storage solution. And then in August of 2020, as part of the board's commitment to policing reforms to address systemic racism and promote fair and bias-free policing, the board approved a contract with Axon for the procuring of body-worn camera technology and associated software. These body-worn cameras are seen as an important, but by no means singular, component of the board's policing reform initiatives. Recording of body-worn cameras will help the service to better identify incidents and patterns of biased and improper policing. However, by themselves, they can neither prevent nor address these issues, nor are they expected to achieve those goals in and of themselves. It is through an ongoing commitment by both the board and the service to develop, apply, and review new tools and address systemic racism and ensure the accountability of the service while enhancing public and service member confidence in the complaints process. Those are the benefits that can be derived from a proper deployment of body-worn cameras. The policy before you today is an important step on the way to ensuring the public's confidence in the Toronto Police Service. If I can have the next slide, please. I want to talk to you a little bit about the governance framework that is included in this policy, and also the process that we undertook, the board office, along with the service, to engage the public and stakeholders in really an unprecedented way in terms of policy development. Recognizing the importance of the governance framework for the effectiveness of body-worn cameras in enhancing public trust, this proposed policy was developed through a robust process of significant public and stakeholder engagement. Both external and internal stakeholders offered feedback, including a very close and fruitful collaboration with the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario. And I want to stop for a moment just to thank the Commissioner and her staff for engaging with the board office right at the start of this process and for its collaborative approach to developing this comprehensive policy. In addition, drafts of both the policy and, as the chair mentioned, the procedure were made available to the general public and were provided directly to community organizations and experts. These individuals and groups were encouraged to make written submissions as part of the consultation, and in addition, our board office hosted 2 webinars along with service staff where the draft policy and procedure were reviewed, questions from the public were answered, and improvements were made. In total, we received 31 written submissions, and all of these, as well as the feedback we received throughout the engagement, were considered in developing the proposed policy, and they remain up on the board's website for people to take a look at. But the process doesn't end just because the board considers a policy today. This will remain evergreen, and we have an ongoing commitment to continue to consult and improve upon this policy as we learn more about the technology. I now want to take you to the overall approach and guiding principles that are embedded within the policy that you see today. And the key guiding principle in its development has been ensuring clear and effective governance that will ultimately translate into clear rules for the men and women of the service who have to use this technology on a day-to-day basis, and a clear understanding by the public of what those rules are. The policy looks to minimize officer discretion and uncertainty that will reduce the inconsistency in the use of the camera and ensure that the public can trust that this tool will be used appropriately for the purposes for which it was deployed. And it does this by being clear about when the cameras should be activated and when they should not, with minimal exceptions that were developed in collaboration with the IPC and other stakeholders. The policy ensures that all direct interactions between an officer and a member of the public will be captured by the cameras. The policy also ensures that once captured, only those with a valid and justifiable reason to gain access to these recordings will be able to do so, while also ensuring that where there's a public interest in releasing recordings, it will be done in a way that protects the privacy and dignity of members of the public. In other words, the general rule will be that the cameras, with only very clear exceptions, will be on, but the access to the recordings will be limited to the smallest possible group that needs to see them. The policy also ensures that the deployment and use of body-worn cameras will be done transparently, and that the effects of deployment will be monitored, reported on, and studied to improve the policy and procedure when necessary. Finally, the policy ensures that the use of body-worn cameras is consistent with best practices as they are developed internationally, as well as in line with the Ontario Human Rights Code, the Charter, and all applicable legislation. I now want to talk a little bit about the purpose of the policy that animates all of the details in it. The policy establishes a number of goals for the deployment of body-worn cameras. We already talked about improving transparency of the service with regards to allegations of conduct, improper conduct, biased service delivery, excessive or improper use of force by service members. The policy's purpose also is about accountability of the service and service members through internal and public oversight systems that are in place. The policy also emphasizes the protection of personal privacy, again, by limiting access to recordings of body-worn cameras to the greatest extent possible and to as limited number of people as possible. But at the same time, ensuring that those who need to have access for legitimate purposes, that access is facilitated. The policy's purpose is also about enhancing public trust and police legitimacy, as well as enhancing public and officer safety. The body-worn camera policy emphasizes providing improved evidence for investigative, judicial, and oversight purposes, and also ensuring a timely and fair response to misconduct allegations against service members in a manner that enhances both public and member confidence in the service's complaint process by facilitating quick and transparent investigations. Finally, the policy does spend some time on training and providing information as to the effectiveness of the service's procedures and training as this technology is rolled out. So I want to spend a little more time on the when and how of body-worn cameras on the next slide. The proposed policy establishes that service members will activate their body-worn cameras prior to the beginning of a direct interaction that is part of an officer's law enforcement duty, or as early as possible in the interaction where that may not be possible. This ensures that social, non-policing related interactions will not be recorded. The policy also ensures that when an officer is not interacting with an individual member or members of the public, the body-worn camera will be deactivated. Members of the public, therefore, can rest assured that they will not be recorded without their knowledge or while they're not interacting with an officer. In other words, body-worn cameras are not a surveillance tool, and the policy ensures that they will not be used as such. With the help of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, we have developed a small set of exceptions that will ensure the protection of dignity, of private information of members of the public interacting with service members. These are the exceptions where body-worn cameras may not be turned on. They include officers consensually entering a private residence, where the officers must ask for permission to continue the recording of the body-worn camera and deactivate it prior to entering a private place if the occupants so desire. Or in sensitive situations where an individual's dignity may be at risk, like an individual who is in a state of undress, where officers will be allowed to briefly cover the lens while addressing the sensitive nature of the situation and continue to record later without risking the dignity of the individual. Another example where there is an exception is in situations where an officer is interacting with a member of the public during a spiritual or cultural ceremony, where the officer must deactivate their camera again unless they obtain permission, or under certain conditions when an officer is in a healthcare facility. And finally, where it's legally forbidden, like in a courthouse where there is a court proceeding, to record. Those are the situations or the exceptions to the rule of recording. Now I want to talk about the access issue. Because the proposed policy will result in the recording of many, tens of thousands of interactions with service members and the public every year, many of which occur during the most sensitive and vulnerable moments of a person's life, it is crucial, and it was always an emphasis in the development of this policy, to ensure that access to these recordings is as strictly limited as possible. The proposed policy sets out these restrictions that basically ensure that unless a service member has a valid and justified need to access a specific recording, they will not be able to do so. Such valid and justified needs include, for example, reviewing recordings from an officer's own body-worn camera after they've completed all of the initial reporting requirements, or reviewing recordings by supervisors to detect incidents of potential improper conduct or the need for additional training. Another example are investigations, where those recordings are necessary and relevant to the investigation at issue, or in support of disclosure obligations in legal proceedings. In addition, oversight bodies, in particular the Special Investigations Unit and the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, will receive timely access to these recordings of the incidents that they are investigating. Other individuals or bodies who have obtained lawful authority to access will be able to get that access when that lawful authority is made clear to the service. Moving on, members of the public will also be able to request access to recordings through the existing Access to Information process. Such access will be provided subject to the conditions set out in MFIPA in an anonymized form that will ensure the identities of other members of the public in the recordings are protected. And finally, the chief may also decide to release a recording, again, subject to a process of anonymization, where no request was made, if the chief believes there is an overwhelming public interest in its release. All access to recordings will be subject to an audit trail that will be kept as part of the data that is related to the recordings themselves, and it will include information on the individual who accessed the recording, the date and time of access, and the reason for it. This will ensure that the service can constantly maintain oversight of access to these materials. And lastly, on this point, the policy, after working with the IPC and organizations like the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the Ontario Human Rights Commission, has a specific ban on the use of images from body-worn cameras in combination with facial recognition and voice analysis software, with the exception only of the service's existing, well-established mugshot database. It's important to note that the mugshot database is itself governed by strict restrictions, which ensure that service members can only access those images when certain conditions are met. These requests cannot be carried out in real time, and each request must relate to an individual person and not, for example, an attempt to search matches throughout a crowd, and can only arise from the investigation of a specific offense that has already occurred. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other controls from a governance perspective that this policy seeks to put in place, related to training, record keeping, supervisors' review, and a transparent disciplinary framework. The proposed policy sets out these controls clearly. It, for example, requires service members to receive initial and ongoing training on the operation and the governance of body-worn cameras. It requires the service to develop a record-keeping system that will ensure a clear audit trail for all uses of body-worn cameras or the recordings generated by them. The policy also requires that supervisors regularly review recordings from their subordinates' body-worn cameras to identify potential biased or discriminatory service delivery, to identify the potential need for additional training, or any issues with regards to compliance with procedures. And for the first time, the policy requires the chief to establish a clear and transparent discipline framework as part of the procedure that's put in place. This will emphasize the importance of carefully complying with the procedure and ensure accountability of service members in following the governance framework in place. On the next slide, I want to highlight some of the retention and disposal elements that have been integrated into the policy. The contract signed by the service with Axon ensures that all recordings will be stored on a secured server in a manner that prevents editing or tampering with the original recordings. All recordings will be kept for a minimum of 2 years to ensure that members of the public who may wish to commence litigation have the ability to access the relevant recordings to do so. And where necessary for valid reasons, such as ongoing investigations or active legal proceedings, the retention period will be extended in accordance with the city's retention schedule. Once a retention period comes to an end, however, the recording is required to be securely destroyed. However, the audit trail, including all instances of access, will be retained indefinitely. Finally, in the case of a privacy breach, and again, I thank the IPC for the work they did with us in this regard, the service will have in place a clear response and mitigation plan, including informing affected members of the public and, where required, the IPC itself. I talked at the beginning of this presentation about the importance of how these cameras can enhance transparency and therefore public confidence between the public and the service. So I want to move on to those elements. The proposed policy requires the service to have an up-to-date webpage containing the current version of its procedure, as well as other information for the public on the service's body-worn camera initiative, as well as the public's rights with regards to it. Maintaining this level of transparency is a crucial element in building and maintaining public trust in the service and in the use of body-worn camera technology. We acknowledge that this is new technology within the policing sphere in Canada. We acknowledge that there may be unfamiliarity with it, and we acknowledge that some people may not understand the rules of when they can be deployed and how access is maintained. And as a result, in addition to this policy, in the recommendations at the front of my report to the board, we ask the board that direct the service through the chief to develop a public education campaign that will allow members of the public to be educated on an ongoing basis with respect to the rollout of this technology. I want to move on very quickly to highlight a few more things with respect to auditing and public reporting. The new technology will emphasize ongoing evaluation, learning, and development. The proposed policy establishes a robust framework for auditing and reporting on the actual impacts of body-worn cameras as they're rolled out. The service will be required to audit a sample of all recordings to ensure that the procedure is complied with and that the recordings amassed by body-worn cameras are effective for the purpose of achieving those policy goals I outlined at the beginning. In addition to the audit's findings, the chief will also report to the board annually with a set of statistics on the access, use, and costs associated with the body-worn camera system and on the various impacts of its implementation with regard to a number of key service indicators, such as complaints and use of force trends. The chief will also conduct an annual evaluation of the initiative, including consultation with members of the public, with an emphasis on marginalized communities, and report these findings to the board. The board itself will also be required to review the policy on an ongoing basis, taking into consideration the development of best practices as they evolve, based on the professional literature, as well as the active experience of the service and the communities that we serve. In this way, like all good policy, the board can address new trends and learnings by ensuring that the governance framework remains responsive and evergreen. The Information and Privacy Commissioner has indicated that following its collaboration, this body-worn camera has become something of a model for body-worn camera governance for other police boards and services in Ontario. And I want to just take a moment to recognize the collective work that has gone on into developing this. The work of the board office staff, and in particular, Duby Cannon-Gisser and Danielle Dowdy, in the policy development, but also in the effective stakeholder consultation that has been robust. The work of the service in being supremely transparent about its evolving procedure, sharing this information with the public, answering questions, and being responsive to what they were hearing, and certainly to all of the stakeholders, professional organizations and members of the public whose input has informed where we have landed today. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Teschner. Before we bring this into the board, we will hear from our deputant. Duby, can you put on the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, please?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Kassan, you should be receiving a request to unmute. You should tap *6 to accept it.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you. Go ahead and move. Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. Would you like me to begin?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. Online with me is Stephen McCammon, our Senior Legal Counsel, who is our lead on this file. My office's consultations with the board and the service on the topic of body-worn cameras date back to 2014, actually, prior to the start of even the pilot project. And we have met with the board and the service numerous times in an effort to guide the development of the governance framework that meets the public need for enhanced transparency and accountability in policing
whilst respecting individuals' reasonable expectation of privacy. Overall, I'm very pleased with the progress made and would like to commend all those involved for their level of engagement and responsiveness to our many recommendations throughout our constructive dialogue. In my view, while there are a few refinements still to be made, I'm confident that we will soon be able to point to Toronto's body-worn camera governance framework as a model that police boards and services across the province should consider adopting. The policy and procedure generally reflect many of my office's recommendations regarding the robust limits and controls on key aspects of the program, as well as significant checks and balances, all of which were so well summarized. I'd like to just point out a few ongoing protections and ongoing opportunities for review and improvement that bear repeating. First, of course, is the ongoing requirement to report any privacy breaches to my office. There's also an ongoing requirement to conduct privacy impact assessments on any proposed changes to the program in consultation with my office. And of course, any complaints made about the program can be brought to my office as well in the normal course of the access and privacy complaint and appeals process to my office. We're very happy to see the ongoing review of the effectiveness of the program based on evidence as it becomes available, which is crucial to maintaining the relevance and ensuring the policy and procedure are evergreen, as was said, and particularly with respect to evaluating any impacts or implications in terms of potential bias or discrimination. And we were very pleased with the commitment to respect an ongoing moratorium on the use of facial recognition technologies until an appropriate regulatory guidance is issued by my office in collaboration with all other federal, provincial, and territorial commissioners across the country. In terms of remaining refinements, we understand that ongoing work and evaluation are required to ensure that the camera's pre-event recording capacity is sufficiently long to capture the full picture of the initial event leading up to all police civilian investigative encounters. That officers are provided with sufficiently clear instruction and training with respect to the appropriate use of body-worn cameras at protests, recognizing the fundamental freedoms of expression and peaceful assembly that are at stake. That record-keeping requirements are further refined to ensure that officers who must exceptionally deactivate their body-worn cameras before they have time to record the reason for deactivation do so at the earliest opportunity thereafter. That additional safeguards are in place to comply with the Youth Criminal Justice Act, that a due diligence review is carried out by the board to ensure that the contractual requirements imposed on Axon comply with all applicable privacy and security obligations, and that the retention and destruction rules are further refined in accordance with my recommendations of November 5th. The board and the service have reiterated their commitment to continue to consult the IPC to address these issues in the weeks and months ahead, as we have reiterated ours. Today, this board is being asked to approve the body-worn camera policy and 6 other related recommendations in the Executive Director's report dated November 11th. And subject to the remaining refinements I just outlined, the IPC supports the adoption of these recommendations. We look forward to continuing our work with the board, the service, and relevant stakeholders, including the Ontario Human Rights Commission, among others, to ensure the fair, accountable, transparent, and effective implementation of the program. With that, I wish to express our congratulations on the tremendous work accomplished, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any questions or comments for the Commissioner? Seeing none, it's Jim Hart, Commissioner. I just wanted to say to you directly how much I appreciated your collegial approach of yourself and your team. your critical advice and recommendations, and meeting with you was a pleasure. You're terrific to work with, and I hope that our working together has helped you in future dealings with police services across Ontario. And thank you so much. Mayor Tory, I believe you have
Mr. Chair.
If you could just hold on for a second, Commissioner. Mayor Tory has something to say.
I just wanted to add to the chair's thanks and just say that, again, it's a comment, but I wanted to make it while you're on the phone, because I think you're the only one of the people that I'm going to refer to that has appeared here with us in person. I found that the letters that came, the submissions that came from the Civil Liberties Association, the Human Rights Commission, and the Privacy Commissioner, of course, were not only hugely helpful to read those comments and allows us to have a degree of accountability for our work and ultimately approving this policy, but also I thought they were incredibly thoughtful and detailed. I mean, it was an extraordinary amount of work that was done, and I think that should give the public some degree of assurance. I think it's a very helpful part of the public process here that, and I've never seen that before in terms of thank you very much for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor Tory. Any other members? Again, thank you, Commissioner. Really appreciate everything.
Thank you.
I will now take this into the board. Any questions on the presentation or the policy itself, board members? Vice Chair, you have a question? Sorry, you're on mute, Vice Chair. No, still. Might have to resort to texting. One more try. No, still can't hear you. Sorry.
One last try.
Oh, I think I heard you.
Okay. Oh, I'm getting an echo.
Yeah, I can hear you though.
So just very quickly, this is groundbreaking. The integrated approach that was taken, the 360-degree approach that was taken to develop this policy has never been seen. And I was an acting director of policy at the Ministry of the Attorney General many decades ago, where we prided ourselves on doing this kind of work this way. So I'm very, very proud, and I'm very, very pleased with how this has unfolded. Thank you. Thank you to Ryan and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Board members? Anyone wish to speak to this item? None. I'll just echo the Vice Chair's thanks to Ryan, to the board staff, to service members. This is a great piece of public policy. And, I've seen many public policies over the years, and the collaboration on this one was first rate, and the end result was terrific and a model for Ontario. So well done, everybody. We're now taking this into the board. Can I have a motion to receive, first of all, the presentation that Mr. Teschner gave? Oh, Chief, no, it's okay. Sorry, I just got a message. Motion to receive. Vice Chair Molinar, seconded by Councillor Ford. All in favor. 4A is received. 4B, a motion to approve the body-worn camera policy. Motion to approve the policy, Vice Chair Molinar, seconded by Ms. Kostakis. All in favor. That's carried. Item number 4 is carried. Item number 5 is now police reform in Toronto Police Service ongoing initiatives. Mr. Teschner, I saw a quick message from you. Did you have something that you wanted to say? I couldn't read it while doing this at the same time. Mr. Teschner?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe the Chief has a few comments and has a few guests that he would like to introduce on 5A.
Okay, terrific. Over to you, Chief.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hart. As I've indicated before, and I think everybody is aware, we have reconstituted a smaller PACER group to work with us in a collaborative way going forward, even as part of completing some outstanding PACER recommendations, as well as working with us on and being a consultative body we will be working with in terms of the 81 recommendations. So what I'd like to do is just turn it over to Acting Deputy Demkew, who is overseeing that work with the committee, to introduce the two co-chairs today, please.
Chief, board members, thank you very much. It gives me actually great pleasure to introduce the next two guests. First of all is Ms. Audrey Campbell. Audrey Campbell, as many of you are familiar with, is a very active community advocate, has spent many, many years working in the community, holding various executive roles at the Jamaican Canadian Association, including as president of the association, and has been involved with us from the very early iterations of the advisory committee that flowed from recommendation number 4 of the PACER report. And that was many years ago now, in 2013, when we started the advisory committee process that flowed from the PACER recommendations. Also today, you're going to hear from Acting Superintendent, Unit Commander of our Community Policing Partners, Community Engagement Policing Unit. And that's Superintendent Stacey Clark. Stacey has also been very much engaged in community consultative work in her role in policing, as well as holding various roles within the police service over the years. But really relevant to this conversation today is Stacey was one of the original members of the PACER team, informing the report that tabled the 31 recommendations and led the consultative processes that informed the report many years ago. And both Audrey and Stacey from the very early days worked as co-chairs of the advisory committee, and they're here today as co-chairs of PACER 2.0. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our two co-chairs for PACER 2.0.
Good morning, Myron. Good morning. Yeah, thanks for the great introduction, Myron. I was waiting to hear the years and years and years that I've spent volunteering with TPS. Good morning, Chair Hart, Mayor Tory, board members, Chief Raymer. I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair, Acting Superintendent Stacey Clark, because I recognize that some of the board members are new and may not be familiar with the PACER committee. So she's going to take you through the background, and I will then take over and take you through where we are currently with the reconstituted PACER 2.0. And I have to tell you, Myron, Chief Raymer, thank Stacey for convincing me to sign on for another 3 years to pursue this endeavor. Okay? Stacey, it's all yours.
Good morning, Chair Hart. Good morning, Chief Raymer, board members, command members, and of course, members of our community. In 2013, the implementation of the 31 recommendations of the Police and Community Engagement Review included the formation of an advisory group, formerly known as the PAC. Now, this group comprised of stakeholders from the police service and as well as our communities. This advisory group was integral in reviewing and discussing the implementation of the recommendations by providing diverse perspectives and views which guided and informed many aspects of implementation of these recommendations. The PAC proved to be comprised of committed individuals able to share differing perspectives and lived experiences within a collaborative forum with a shared vision of improving delivery of police services in Toronto. The hours of contribution without compensation is simply one measure by which the dedication of the PAC members was demonstrated. And while the PAC was officially disbanded in 2017, many of the members continue to contribute to improving policing by leveraging the collaborative relationships established in the PAC. I do want to take you through 5 of our PACER goals. To establish the purpose, legality, and governance framework of community engagements and information obtained therein. to assess and address issues of racial profiling and bias in community engagements at both the individual and systemic levels, and to enable the delivery of bias-free police services. To collaborate with the community in a process of continuous improvement for the effectiveness and equity of all community engagements. To improve officer training and performance related to all community engagements. And last but not least, to improve the public safety of community engagements while reducing the social costs associated with the process. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stace. In terms of where we are today, Chief Raymer reinstated our PACER 2.0 committee back in September, and we have hit the ground running. We've kept the same format in terms of the committee composition. It's comprised of returning and new members, which are both civilians and TPS officers. Joining me on the civilian side are, we've got 8 members, including myself, Stephen Linton and Dave Doyen, who are the young people of the group. They were on our committee previously, and Stephen was on our Know Your Rights subcommittee. Stephen McCammon, who represents the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, Yvette Blackburn, who's an educator and community advocate, Jennifer Chambers, who brings that mental health lens. She's the Executive Director of the Empowerment Council, Nia King from Mayat Legal Services, and the newest member of our committee is John Odell. John is new to PACER, but not new to TPS. He's a former chair of the Chiefs Black Consultative Committee. On the policing side, we have our acting Deputy Chief, Myron Demke, who was there from the beginning of PACER. Of course, my co-chair, Acting Superintendent Stacey Clark, who is reprising her role. Superintendent Pauline Gray, Inspector Kelly Skinner, who is new to our team. Welcome, Kelly. Megan Gray from TPS Corporate Communications. And I'm giving a shout out to Sabrina Tersini. She's our admin support, TPS admin support, who has, shown up evenings, even when she's ill, to support our committee. Our purpose, as outlined in our terms of reference, right, is to consult and complete the outstanding PACER recommendations. The most important, which was something that stuck in my craw that we never completed, was the Know Your Rights education campaign, which was recommendation number 27. So our subcommittee has formed, the same ones that had it the last time. They've hit the ground running, and they are moving forward with this. We're very mindful of the timelines for the end of the year. We consulted on the body-worn cameras, both the board policy and the service procedures. We're consulting and working with Staff Superintendent Rob Johnson on the services implementation of the board's 81 recommendations contained in the August 2020 Police Services Board Report. And of course, included in that 81 recommendations is police reform in Toronto, systemic racism, alternative community safety and crisis response models, and building new confidence in public safety. The fourth thing that we've committed to doing as well is we're going to act as a consultation on any ad hoc requests from the chief. We started meeting in September. We committed to meeting twice a month. Our Know Your Rights Committee, God bless them, they have been meeting 4 times a month, so in between our regular meetings, because they are committed to getting this done. We have our eyes on the deadline of the end of the year. We are in the middle of consultations at the moment, and we have received presentations from Staff Superintendent Rob Johnson, as I said, Superintendent Mike Barsky on the body-worn. Sulin Knight presented to us our group on the Equity and Inclusion and Human Rights Unit, and we've also had presentations from Acting Superintendent Kim O'Toole from the college, and we are slated to get another one at our next meeting. So we're mindful of the deadlines. We are committed to collectively meeting them and to getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief, do you have anything to add before we go to deputations?
No, just that, Audrey, I'm holding you to that year-end commitment, right, for Know Your Rights?
Oh, but listen, you don't have to hold us to that. We wanted that for years. So we're drinking the Kool-Aid, and we're burning the midnight oil on it.
Wow, that's great. Thanks so much, Audrey. And that's it for me, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And just before I go to deputations, I want to thank each and every one of you for stepping up to the plate yet again. You've stepped up before and given so much of yourselves, and now you're willing to do it again. Our community and our city is very lucky to have you. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Now, I'd like to move forward to deputations. We have 3 deputants with us today. We have 5 who have given written submissions. Mr. Hamlin Grange gave a written submission, but he's not with us here today. Ms. Nicole Corrado gave us a written submission, but she's not here today. But here today with us, first of all, is Mr. John Sewell. Mr. Sewell, whenever you're ready.
Chair Hart, Mr. Sewell isn't online right now. We're trying to get him back on.
Okay.
So we'll move on to Derek Moran. Derek, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Derek.
Go ahead when you're ready.
At the core of police reform should be the idea that the public has confidence in the police to uphold their rights and freedoms rather than have to worry about whether the police are trying to find a way to circumvent them and try to violate our rights and freedoms. Take notice what the Supreme Court of Canada had to say in regards to the right of bodily autonomy. This is from Dobson, Litigation Guardian versus Dobson, 1999. They cite Stallman versus Youngquist from the Supreme Court of Illinois. And at the very bottom of what I submitted in my written submission, there it just simply mentions and infringes on her right to privacy and bodily autonomy. So, yeah, so who knew that bodily autonomy was one of those rights, because it's not mentioned in the Constitution Act 1982, right? So if the Supreme Court of Canada acknowledges the right to bodily autonomy, then how can anyone force me to wear a mask? How can anyone force me to wear a mask if I have the right to bodily autonomy? Just so there's no ambiguity, I'm going to take this opportunity here to say that I claim the right and or freedom to go wherever the hell I want without wearing a mask. I also claim the right and or freedom to breathe without wearing a mask, as I find breathing in that foul mixture of my own heat exhaust and carbon dioxide while wearing a mask to be quite nauseous. Barring any objections, of course. Are there any objections to my claims of right and or freedom? Going once. Now, I want to give Meritori enough time to think this over, just in case he wants to object to me. Going twice. Are there any objections? Going 3 times. Let the record show that there were no objections to my claims of right and or freedom. How serious the Toronto Police are with police reform will be tested with how they conduct themselves during this unlawful lockdown. Something to keep in mind is a recent decision dated November 11th, 2020, where a Portuguese appeal court ruled against the Azores Regional Health Authority concerning a lower court decision to declare unlawful the quarantining of 4 persons. The court allegedly stated, because it's not exactly like I can look this up on Canley, it's from Portugal, a medical diagnosis is a medical act that only a physician is legally qualified to undertake, and for which such physician will be solely and entirely responsible. No other person or institution, including government agencies or the courts, has such an authority. It is not up to the Azores Regional Health Authority to declare someone ill or a health hazard. Only a physician can do that. No one can be declared ill or a health hazard by decree or law, nor as the automatic administrative consequence of the outcome of a laboratory test, think those PCR tests, no matter which. And this is from the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, who recently stated, politicization of science was enthusiastically deployed by some of history's worst autocrats and dictators, and it is now regrettably commonplace in democracies, like what's going on now. The medical political complex tends towards suppression of science to aggrandize and enrich those in power. And as the powerful become more successful, richer and further intoxicated with power, the inconvenient truths of science are suppressed. When good science is suppressed, people die. The stakes are high for politicians, scientific advisors, and government appointees. Their careers and bank balances may hinge on the decisions that they make, but they have a higher responsibility and duty to the public. So part of police reform should absolutely be about that they don't end up enabling these autocrats and dictators the public is currently having to put up with. Take notice of what the Supreme Court of Canada had to say in regards to the government's sole claim to exercise lawful authority. This is from the reference regarding the secession of Quebec, 1998. The Constitution binds all governments, both federal and provincial, including the executive branch. They may not transgress its provisions. Indeed, their sole claim to exercise lawful authority rests in the powers allocated to them under the Constitution and can come from no other source. But the problem with that is that, as I've mentioned before, subject to Section 59 of the Constitution Act 1982, the Queen signed a proclamation to it. The Constitution Act 1982 has yet to come into force, and anyone can read that at Section 58, 59, and 23.1a. That's it.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions of the deputies? Seeing none, thank you very much for taking the time, Derek.
Thank you, Chair.
Can you put on the next deputy, whether it's Mr. Sewell or Ms. Chambers?
Jennifer Chambers, you need to press *6 to accept the unmute. We're still waiting for Mr. Sewell to call in. Jennifer, can you hear us? Jennifer, if you can hear us, you need to press *6. There you go. Jennifer, are you there? Your phone might still be on mute.
Hello?
Hi, Jennifer?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead when you're ready.
Oh, good. I'm here to address the Mobile Crisis Intervention Team expansion. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Steve Lurie. We're both co-chairs of the Mental Health and Addiction Advisory Panel to the Police Services Board. So since June, MAP has had in-depth discussions about developing a made-in-Toronto non-police crisis response. At the June, August, and September TPS board meetings, we indicated that we supported expansion of MCIT, but recommended that expansion should be funded from the TPS budget and not compete with funding proposals to develop a community-based, non-police crisis response. To be perfectly clear, this means that in the opinion of MAP members, mental health workers as well as police officers be funded through the current Toronto Police Service budget. In the current report, the service indicates that it will fund expansion of police members from within its TPS resources that outline the advocacy it's undertaken with LINS and Ministry of the Solicitor General. In the event the Ontario government funding is made available to expand police crisis services in Toronto, we recommend the following. One, that funds be used to coordinate or partner with Gerstein Centre and other community mental health providers to fund services that will reduce dependence on TPS crisis response. This could include increased capacity to divert or publicize an alternative to 911 calls, instead routing or offering direct lines to community services such as the Gerstein Centre. Two, that funds be used to fund increased community capacity to provide follow-up support to MCIT and primary response unit response calls. Three, that TPS find funds within its operating budget to expand clinical and police MCIT capacity, as mentioned above. And four, funds be used to improve anonymized data mining capacity for TPS crisis calls, including call origin, presenting issues and disposition, as well as evaluating non-police crisis response in partnership with the community. The community-based crisis services, not hospital and police-based crisis services, have been identified by people who've been in crisis as their model of choice. Unfortunately, funding has flowed preferentially to more coercive models in recent years, while community-based crisis services have been reduced, such that West End Toronto lacks them altogether. Best evidence supports the effectiveness of meeting the self-identified needs of people with mental health issues. Gerstein Centre, the Toronto exemplar of such a model,
consistently has a greater demand on its services than it is able to meet, and the expansion and development of such services should be the Toronto priority. People's inability to access such desired services when needed can result in crises for which the police are called, most often by someone other than the individual. It's important to ensure also that MAF recommendations be respected regarding the need for significant involvement of community members, particularly organizations representing people with lived experience in mental health and substance use issues, as well as community-based crisis services, and with a substantial component of expertise by experience, service delivery by peers. This should result in a significant presence in MCIT decision-making bodies and training, development, and delivery. Finally, MCIT development must take place in concert with the TPS mental health and addiction strategy. This means, among other things, that it's not acceptable to say that there is no room for the voice of people with lived experience and oversight of the MCIT. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the deputant? Seeing no questions. Thanks very much, Jennifer. Really appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is Mr. Sewell on?
Yes, Mr. Sewell, you should be able to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, John Sewell here. I
Hello, John,
apologize
we can hear
that
you.
I was not earlier available. Had a doctor calling me. There are a number of things we like about this report that's before the board. Firstly, we like the idea that the mobile crisis intervention teams are going to be expanded to provide 24/7 service throughout the city. This is something that we've been asking the board to do for 7 or 8 years. We like the idea that a crisis worker from community agency will help at the 911 center regarding the diversion of calls. We think this is a good idea. Thirdly, we're delighted that mobile crisis intervention teams will be first responders in a number of cases. We think they should be expanded. But again, we've been asking for them to be first responders for about 8 years. And lastly, we're happy that uniforms are going to be reconsidered given their negative impact. We notice that the report says that these changes in the new staffing will be funded from existing resources with no new funding requested for the expanded service. City Council decided in June it wishes to see responses to calls about those in mental crisis to be handled by civilian agencies, not the police. Yet here the proposal is the police should remain in charge of this expanded service. And we believe it makes more sense for the police service to transfer the money for the existing mobile crisis intervention teams and the proposed expansion to community agencies so that they can provide this service as decided by Toronto City Council. We know that this would take some time to try and arrange that, and that's fine. But we believe that community agencies can have a civilian service up and running as quickly as the Toronto Police Services could expand the mobile crisis intervention team services if those funds are made available to them. So I think the point is that discussion should begin immediately about how that transfer of funds is going to take place, the timing and the amounts that are involved. And so our recommendation to the board is that the board agree that rather than expanding mobile crisis intervention services proposed, that the funds for the existing service and the funds needed for the expanded service be made available from the police operating budget for a civilian response to mental crisis cases, as is now being established in Toronto. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. Board members, any questions for Mr. Sewell? Mayor Tory, go right ahead when you're ready.
I just wanted to ask Mayor Sewell if he's aware of the fact there's I'll call it a parallel process going on, because I've been seeing some of the interim reports that will be reported out to the City Council, I think in January, with respect, and quite a bit of progress has been made on the sort of kind of framework within which you could have a civilian, if you want to call it that, a civilian response mechanism for these kinds of calls. And that, so, you know, I think I just want to know if he's aware that it's not necessarily an either or case. I think I look at it here is that we're getting this extra service now before there's a recommendation that's been put to the city council or anywhere else about how this could be done on a civilian basis, so that we're getting the benefit of having increased service now, pending the development of and presentation to council and to the board or whoever else gets presented to on how to handle these cases going forward. So to me, it's a kind of a, it's not an either or situation as discussed. I just want to make sure you were aware of that.
Yeah, oh, very much, sir. Very much so, sir. Yes, I understand that those discussions are continuing and are being developed. And I guess the point that I'm making is that I think that in fact, those can be finalized at about the same time as the Toronto Police Service is starting to retrain officers. And that's why I think it's important for the board to say, we're all set to transfer these funds, and let's figure out how to start doing it right now. What I'm worried about is that the board is going to set up this whole mobile crisis intervention team as a larger service. And then, in fact, we're going to find it's very, very difficult to get those monies over to agencies. So rather than letting the service go ahead with all its great expansion, we should be saying those negotiations should happen right now so the transfer can take place quickly.
Point taken. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sewell.
Thank you. Chief, can I ask you to comment on what Mr. Sewell has just?
Yes, Chair. What I will say is that we've been working very hard to expand the MCIT program, utilizing existing funds within the organization, and I'm happy to report that the expansion will include our ability to provide extended coverage to 20 hours a day. It also includes a pilot project where crisis workers can be embedded into our 9/11 center to better triage calls from the start and hopefully divert those calls so that the police will not attend. But I want to emphasize as well, though, the police will have to continue to be part of this process.
Chair, just to build on that and to Mayor Sewell's earlier point, the Strategy Management Unit under the direction of Staff Superintendent Johnson and Inspector Paletta have also been working extremely collaboratively with the City of Toronto to develop those alternative service deliveries, which, like Mayor Tory mentioned, I believe is coming forward in January.
Thank you very much. Board members, any questions of Mr. Sewell or any comments from Mr. Sewell? Seeing none, thank you once again, Mr. Sewell, for coming here today, and I'm glad you've recognized some of the work that's happened recently with the service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, can I make one other comment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just, something I neglected to mention, that in terms of the crisis workers that we're going to have in communications, the service will be paying that salary.
Great. Good point. Thank you. Thanks. I'll now bring items 5A, B, C, D into the board. Any questions on those board members? Questions? Vice Chair, you have a question? I believe Ryan has your question, though, I think. Anyone else have a question before I go to Ryan on that one? Okay, Ryan, can you give the Vice Chair's question, please?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't think it's come through yet, Madam Vice Chair. If you want to resend it, please.
Okay.
Oh, I think I've got it here now. Thank you. This is a question from the Vice Chair with respect to one of the items that is part of the report on 5A related to the intercultural development inventory approach. And it's a question from the Vice Chair who says this: I have read Mr. Hamlin Grange's written deputation, which is part of today's public record. I'm aware that Mr. Grange, a former TPSB board member, is a highly respected intercultural competency consultant whose decades of work across all sectors are why he was selected years ago to work with the Toronto Police Service to set the groundwork for the 16 recommendations made in his 2015 assessment and report. I think it is important to not appear to reinvent the wheel when excellent work has yet to be fully considered and presented to the board. The Toronto Police Service report before us includes some important proposals. Perhaps the Chief can come back to the board to ensure we fully understand how the 2015 report, which also has some excellent recommendations, and today's Toronto Police Service report recommendations can proceed together. As part of that follow-up, I'm also interested in knowing the answer to a specific question asked by Mr. Grange, which is what happened to the 23 recently trained quality assurance members.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Deputy McLean, could you respond to that, please?
Yes, good morning again. Absolutely. The quality assurance members who were trained, most of them are still with our service. However, we are working toward a response to this recommendation, and we will include this question within our response to the board. We hope we'll have a more fulsome report for the board, and we're aiming for the December meeting.
Thank you, board members. Any further questions? Chief, I've got a question on 5A, and I also have a motion that I'm going to put up. The question is not related to the motion. The question on 5A is on page 136 of 151, where it talks about the TPS conducting a review of alternative equipment options and looking at the UK. And can you tell me now what you found out from your study of UK unarmed versus armed response? And if you don't have that with you today, I'd love to see that sometime in the future. It's a very interesting number of questions that were raised, but I can't find the answer to them.
Thank you. Thanks for that question, Chair Hart. And that is something that we can, again, report back on in a more fulsome response. I know that a lot of work previously within strategy management has gone into the redesign of the uniform. I know Ryerson has done a lot of work. The Ryerson Design Group has done a lot of work in this as well. But again, we can report back next month with a fulsome response.
That's great. If you could do that, I appreciate it. And just one other comment before I get to my motion, unless other members have questions. On 5D, under financial implications for MCIT, you start out by saying there are no financial implications relating to this recommendation. But I think it's really important for board members and the public to know diverting resources to the MCIT program does divert people and it does divert budget. Can you tell me the cost of this recommendation and how much money you are diverting from other areas within the service to the MCIT program so that there are no financial implications? Because there really are. It's a reallocation of resources, and I think it's important that the public and the board knows the quantum of that. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, Chair Hart, thank you. It really is about redeploying personnel, and there is a cost to that, but I'll turn it over to Deputy Ewan for the specifics.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Absolutely, the Chief has put it properly that in order for us to expand our MCIT program, we are now looking at diverting officers from different areas of the service to fill those roles. So certainly there will be a cost, and we are getting some preliminary cost funding formula from the province to expand our MCIT capacity. And I want to reiterate, the money is not going to Toronto Police Service from the province. They're going to pay for the nurses. And our role is to match the number of nurses that the funding will provide, and we'll have additional MCIT teams out there. So, we're looking at could be another 20 officers we've diverted back to the front line to do MCIT. And if you look at salary and costs, approximately $150,000 individual, so you do 20, and that's the cost there. But I can once I get the funding formula from the province detailed, then I can give the board a much more detailed report on the exact cost from diverting other areas of the service to expand the MCIT program.
Thank you, Deputy. I just wanted that to get out there. It's my understanding that you've diverted about $3 million in staff resources. You've just corroborated that, so that's terrific. I just wanted the public and board members to know that that's what you and the Chief and other service members are recommending. I think that's terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Board members, see Ms. Kostakis has a question, then I see Mr. Morgan has a question. Ms. Kostakis first.
Just to follow up on that, Deputy, is there also the crisis, the City of Toronto's crisis response unit and the focus tables have been working somewhat collaborative together with the MCIT as well. And I keep hearing that there'll be nurses with the MCIT. And I guess to Mr. Sewell's points too about other service providers that are out in the community, because resources, I guess, is not always about the funding piece and the dollars. It's also about what already exists and building on those partnerships to expand and enhance with the MCIT, but not just with the model of the nurses and the city alone, but with the other partners. Are you looking at those models or still continuing to build on those partnerships, which includes other service providers that have that expertise in dealing with people with mental health, outside of even just, not just nurses to devalue the expertise of nurses, obviously, but just sort of building on that collaboration and that holistic and wraparound approach in moving forward, because it's one thing when the crisis happens, it's what happens afterwards as well, that avoids that repetitive cycle of occurring again where MCIT is going back to similar residences, et cetera.
Thank you for that question. First, the current structure and the memorandum of understanding for MCIT has to be a police officer and a nurse from our partnering hospitals in the city. But if we, and I do know that we report to the board on a yearly basis on the success of focus tables. And I can assure you that majority the referrals to focus tables are with mental health cases. And I know our MCIT officers, and as we built our recording, capturing our reporting and the stats in a more robust manner, then those numbers will be easily searchable, that how many cases we do refer to focus tables. And you heard the chief mention earlier, we are tapping into other service providers aside from nurses, and we will be commencing a pilot project very soon to have crisis workers from our agencies across the city working in our communications and to triage those calls and to determine whether police response or a community agency's response is appropriate. And also currently in our MCIT, we also have working with a community agency called CODA to triage these calls, and so we do not go back to these calls on a repeated cases. So these are working out very well, and certainly Acting Staff Superintendent Johnson is working with the city to look at alternative response model with these agencies. So these things are all happening simultaneously.
Okay, thank you for that. I was sitting on the committee when we had those discussions at the MHAP committee as well, and outside of that. So it's good to see. It's just great to see that moving forward and looking at the model and expanding it and enhancing it, but just that sustainability and the wraparound approach. So thank you.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes, thanks, Chair Hart. I have, I guess, a sort of a two-part question, and I'm hoping I can get some clarification. Just in terms of Mr. Hamlin-Green's deputation and sort of, it seems there's a lot of work that was put into what was shared. However, it seems to me a big challenge when we're looking at how some of this is being communicated and sort of the sort of fallout of this and sort of public confidence. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how that's being acknowledged or addressed. So that's my first part, and this is somewhat related, but I've asked a number of board meetings regarding some of the diversity statistics, and that I was informed is going to be shared with the board, but to my knowledge has not been shared as of yet. And I'm just really would like to get a definite timeline for when that will be shared. I'm hoping that we can sort of be committed to that. I think it's very important, particularly in our current climate, to be very transparent around those issues. So it's sort of two-part, but somehow related. So I'm hoping someone can speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Chief?
Yeah. Yes. What I will tell you, sir, is that we are going to be doing a more fulsome assessment, and we will be getting back to you. But I'll turn it over again to Deputy McLean if she's got any more that she can add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question about the diversity stats. Absolutely. I'll have it for you before the next meeting. In fact, my team's already working on it. The other piece too, you'll see in the report for recommendation 30, that is a project for the people and culture team going forward. We want to be able to understand those numbers even better, even though they will be collected voluntarily. The other piece, the other question you have, Fallout Republic confidence. Can you clarify that so I can make sure that I'm responding to what you're asking?
Sure. So I think in my understanding, and I guess this is part of the clarification I'm searching for, we seem to be moving away from what was initially sort of contracted to do, and in terms of doing something internal. So my understanding, the clarification I'm seeking is that how is that being communicated in terms of what he was involved in is no longer where my understanding where we're going. And we're looking to create our own sort of matrix around some of these pieces. I guess, similar to some of the points raised earlier, is it a complete, is there nothing that's useful from what was previously being sourced? Is there a reason that we seem to be moving away and trying to create something new, which again is starting from scratch, which is additional cost and so forth and so on, right? And also will take some time to develop. I guess if there's momentum for something that we're currently using, why this potential shift or to something that my understanding has not been developed and would need to be developed, and obviously there would be a cost associated with that. So I'm just trying to understand that piece and then how that was communicated to Mr. Grange and his team.
Yeah, absolutely. So at a high level, you would have heard in September that one of the initiatives within the 2020-23 People Plan is an equity strategy. And so that's on the docket for 2021, should we have the funding available for it. At a high level, the issue with the tool is that while it does identify some gaps, there isn't as much specificity around the gaps that we would as we would like. So, for example, if there are gaps with certain groups, it doesn't identify the groups, and so it's very difficult to develop a specific development plan for that individual. And so those were some of the concerns we've highlighted, as well as a change in the business model since the beginning of the report. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the service is working on a report that we are aiming for December that should be able to provide some more clarity for this. But at a high level, I hope that answers your question. Sorry, one last piece in terms of what was communicated to Mr. Grange. I wasn't in those conversations, so I can't respond, but I can get back to you on that specifically if that's what you would like.
Yes, I think, to be honest, I just think it's important as much as possible to be very transparent in these sort of communications, particularly when these are particularly members of the community that go back into spaces that have a certain level of respect and trust. We want to build that and maintain that, not sort of, move into a space that doesn't necessarily put us in a positive light. So it's just a caution for me. I think it's important that we continue to build those bridges and acknowledge and support those that are willing to work with us in doing so, and showing a certain level of respect in terms of the communication around that. Not saying that this wasn't done, I'm not sure, and that's what I'm hoping someone can clarify as you've mentioned. So that would be helpful if that can also be part of the next month's meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely, I'll make sure that's included.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a motion I'll be tabling shortly that I think you might find helpful. Any other members have questions of the service members? Any questions? I'll now go to speakers, and Ryan, maybe I'll start off. And Ryan, can you put my motion up for members to take a look?
I'll just ask her to do that. Can we put the chair's motion up on the screen, please?
Thanks. Like Vice Chair Mulliner and like Mr. Morgan, when I read Mr. Grange's written submission, I had some questions as well. So I've prepared a motion. I don't know if everybody can see it on their screen. On my screen, it's quite small, so I will actually read it. The motion says, meet with representatives of DiversiPro Incorporated regarding the intercultural development inventory to discuss the concerns identified in the services summary. 2, review DiversiPro's authored 2015 IDI assessment and report and recommendations contained therein. And 3, meet with a cross-section of service members who originally completed the IDI assessment and the recently trained and licensed qualified administrators to better understand their feedback and experience with the IDI. And 4, report back to the board on the outcomes of the meeting with DiversiPro Incorporated. D, the status of the recommendations that were made as part of the 2015 IDI assessment and report. C, the outcomes of the meetings with a cross-section of service members who originally completed the IDI assessments and the recently licensed qualified administrators. And finally, D, a comprehensive rationale of next steps, taking into account points 1, 2, and 3. Any questions, board members? If you could take that off the screen now so I could see the board members, that would be terrific. Thank you very much. Any questions, board members? Hearing none. And I
was just going to second the motion, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah. Can I have a seconder of this motion? Vice Chair Molinar, I saw you first. All in favor? All in favor of 5A as amended? Any opposed? 5A is carried as amended. 5B, C, and D, unless there are any other speakers or questioners, and I haven't seen any, could I have a motion to receive 5B, C, and D? Vice Chair Molinar, seconded by Ms. Kostakis. All in favor? Any opposed? 5B, C, and D are carried. Item number 5 as a whole is carried. We'll now move forward to item number 6.
5 boys and girls.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yes, you can. Go right ahead.
Yeah, to provide the board the information that's within the motion. So we were aiming for December. Can we aim for January so that we can do the additional asks that are in the motion?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Now move forward to item number 6, which I held. It's the Auditor General's proposed risk-based audit plan of the Toronto Police Service. I believe the Auditor General is on the line and would like to speak to this item, and that's why I held it. Julie, could you put the Auditor General on for us?
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So before you have a risk-based plan, a plan that we wish to undertake to identify opportunities for the Toronto Police Force and for the city. And I'd like to draw your attention to page 5. And on page 5, what we've done is we've outlined by year our direction in relation to the projects that we wish to undertake. Every year we update the plan that you would have, but for 2021, we have going down the side. We have a series of cybersecurity projects because it's been about 10 years since we've been auditing the Toronto Police Service. We want to get baseline projects done so that we can fully understand the opportunities and the risks. So cybersecurity is actually underway. The teams are working well together. We want to, as we noted in our last meeting with you, 911 operations is really a key area of trajectory because that's where a lot of police services starts. And then we have the ability, and we're going to undertake companion projects at the same time with fire and paramedics and look at the dynamic between all of those services. So that's a lot in itself. In addition, we're going to have a lens across the service with a project that we wish to undertake in relation to item 1C from the 2020 August board report, and that was a recommendation that came forth. But we looked at it ourselves, and we really thought there was value in assessing police responsibilities and service areas, and really looking for those handoff points, opportunities to have other delivery models. And so we're looking forward to doing that this year, but also to keep a potential running project as we move forward. And out of there may be a series of projects. On the horizon, we have a number of projects, and I'd like to say a few things. Number one, this is a direction versus a decision. These are the items that we believe at this time are important, but we assess those each year in relation to new legislation, emerging issues, and also progress that the police services makes as it moves and continues to reform. We will refine our plan. So what's important now is you see the projects for 2021, and we're looking for your endorsement on those. And then in relation to the horizon, this is our direction because we have a no surprises approach. But we will come back next year, probably around this time, and then firm down the projects for the following year and advise you if something has changed and why it's changed. In relation to on the horizon for 2022, 2023, and longer, these are not necessarily in order of priority. These are projects that we will be addressing in relation to, or we plan to address, in relation to looking at when we have our resourcing, what's priority. And sometimes there are certain things that have to be in place before we move to another item. For example, we want to understand the 911 operations before we move into response to mental health calls. And so that would be a dynamic that we would be looking at, proactive or policing to help to reduce crime in the future is a very important area. But we really want to understand what's happening first in other areas and then move into that area. And consultation continues throughout. So once we start our projects, we will continue to consult with the various stakeholders as we move forward. So this is we're excited to move forward with this plan. I can say that the chief the board for questions.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions? Must have been so comprehensive. I don't see any questions. I just want to say, Auditor General, it's Jim Hart. I just want to say, Auditor General, that first of all, thank you for the work that you've done so far, the way that you deal with certainly the board staff, myself, the way that you deal with service members and your team. And I want to thank you for pointing out on page 2 of your report that on behalf of the board, I wrote to you on December the 12th, 2019, just about a year ago, inviting you in as service to cybersecurity audits. So I think it's important that everyone knows that the board reached out to you long before anyone else did. So I want to thank you for noting that in your report. And we really look forward to working with you. And I know that whatever you end up reporting on will be very helpful, as all Auditor General reports I have experienced in my previous career have always been helpful. So I just want to thank you for that and look forward to working with you further. Board members, anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, I think that's Auditor General. Thank you so much, and thank you for tying up your morning waiting to call in. We appreciate it.
You do important work, and I'd like to thank my team because we are a team, and it takes a village to bring these reports together. And I want to thank my team also for all the work they're doing. Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you very much, Auditor General.
Thank you.
Board members, can we approve item number 6, which is the Auditor General's proposed risk-based audit plan of Toronto Police Service? Can I have a mover to approve that report? Ms. Kostaka, seconded by the Vice Chair. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Now we'll move forward to our very last item, which is item number 22, the public minutes of meeting 71 held on August 24th, 2020 of the Central Joint Health and Safety Committee. Derek, when you're ready.
Derek, you should have received a request now.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead when you're ready.
In this report, there's a part dealing with respiratory protection masks. So I have some things for the Toronto Police to think about regarding mask use that have not yet been mentioned by Dr. Davila. In case the Toronto Police ever wondered, here's the discussion that took place at Toronto City Council when the vote on the mandatory mask bylaw took place. This is Councillor Cressy to Dr. Davila. You are recommending the requirement for masks in indoor public settings. How has the evidence evolved in recent months to suggest that this is the best course of action today, in your opinion, Dr. Davila? We know increasingly that people who may be infected with the virus that causes COVID-19 may not actually show symptoms or have very, very mild symptoms. And we've seen over time that the use of a cloth mask actually prevents the transmission of those germs from people who, for example, may have the infection and not know it. So notice she was asked for evidence, but instead she just made use of the word may 3 times. Therefore, she wasn't using any evidence at all. She was just making an arbitrary decision, just like she usually does. Just want to point out in the Canadian Oxford Dictionary, may is defined as expressing possibility. Science is not about possibilities. Here's what Dr. Theresa Tam has said on masks in the past. Putting a mask on an asymptomatic person, it's not beneficial, obviously, if you're not infected. What we worry about actually is the potential negative aspects of wearing masks. It increases the touching of your face, if you think about it. If you got a mask around your face, sometimes you can't help it because you're just touching parts of your face. The other thing is the outside of the mask could be contaminated as well. When you're removing a mask, and numerous infectious diseases, even in a hospital setting, we find it's removing personal protective equipment that can actually lead to infection. And this was from IPAC, the Infection Prevention and Control Canada, on masks during the H1N1 pandemic. There is no evidence to suggest that wearing masks will prevent the spread of H1N1 influenza A transmission in the general population. Improper use of masks may, in fact, increase the risk of infection. Masks do not act as an effective barrier against disease. I'm going to say that again. Masks do not act as an effective barrier against disease when they are worn for extended periods of time. In addition, removing your mask incorrectly can spread virus to your hands and face. This is from the Public Health Ontario's own spreadsheet, fact sheet, PDF sheet they put out. Unless you have symptoms of COVID-19, there is no clear evidence that wearing a mask will protect you from the virus. However, wearing a mask may help protect others around you if you are sick. This is from the New England Journal of Medicine. We know that wearing a mask outside healthcare facilities offers little, if any, protection from infection. The chance of catching COVID-19 from a passing interaction in a public space is therefore minimal. In many cases, the desire for widespread masking is just a reflexive reaction to anxiety over the pandemic. And this is from the World Health Organization itself. Non-medical fabric masks are being used by many people in public areas, but there has been limited evidence on their effectiveness, and WHO does not recommend their widespread use among the public for control of COVID-19. WHO advises governments to encourage the general public to use non-medical fabric masks, not to mandate them, not to force people to wear them, but to encourage the public to use them. And let's not forget what Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove said, I've mentioned here before, technical lead COVID-19 from the World Health Organization Health Emergencies Program said. But from the data we have, it still seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmits onward to a secondary individual. So that's more information that Dr. DeVille has never mentioned to any of us, has it? So the whole thing about, oh, asymptomatic people can transmit the virus is a lie. So therefore, if you don't have any symptoms, you don't have to worry about wearing a mask. So I just wanted to put that all out on the record, and now you all, especially Mayor Tory, knows.
Thank you, Derek. Any questions of Derek? Seeing none, thank you for taking the time, Derek. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Hart.
Item number 22 is the public minutes of meeting 71 held on August 24th, 2020 of the Central Joint Health and Safety Committee. Can I have a motion to receive this item, please? Vice Chair, can I have a seconder? Mr. Morgan, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. That's the last item for this public meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn the public meeting? Vice Chair Molinar, seconded by Mayor Tory. All in favor? Opposed? This portion of the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again in public on December the 15th, likely virtually. Bye for now.